Welcome to a special episode of our Black History Month edition of Ask an Elder. In today's discussion, we will have an opportunity to reflect on a watershed moment in our journey to the desegregation of our educational system with a sibling of one of the Little Rock Nine. Today's discussion between two influential leaders in the educational system, one an elder, the other a rising superstar. This is one that you don't want to miss. Without further ado, the NBLE Project's Ask an Elder.
Good evening, Ms. Washington. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, and it's such a pleasure to be with you this evening.
Likewise, it is a pleasure to be with you too. And so I think at this point we'll go about introducing ourselves. So I am Anthony Mays, Dr. Anthony Mays. I am a Houston Tillerson alum right here out of Austin, Texas. I like for people to know that I've been in my marriage slash partnership for over 20 plus years to Belinda Mays, who I met on the campus of Houston Tillerson. And we now have three beautiful kiddos, Adriel, Austin, and Alexander, who's my baby boy, my son. The other thing that I like for people to know about me is I'm a lifelong educator. I've served as a high school teacher, a middle and high school principal. And now I currently serve as the chief of schools with Austin ISD, and I'm committed to dying in the field of education because I recognize the transformational power of education. And so this interview today, of course, is special to me because I get to talk to someone that's been a part of transformation, from a historical context and what education can do for the students that we serve on a day-to-day basis. So I'm excited to be here today with you. And I know that I am supposed to do the introduction, but I would like for you to introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Thank you very much. And I must first offer my concern about your Texas situation, and I hope
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
making out okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm Triobia Green, Washington. I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, back in the day when Jim Crow was alive and well, and had wonderful high school, grammar school, junior high school experiences that enabled me to attend rather and graduate from Hampton. It was then Hampton Institute, now Hampton University. And I decided as I was growing up that I would become a teacher like my mother and my aunt. I initially wanted to become a dress designer,
Mm-hmm.
but of course, during that time, there was no one to emulate,
Mm-hmm.
and Hampton discontinued the dress design course 2 years before I decided to attend. So I changed my professional aspirations and became a kindergarten teacher because I figured I could incorporate music and art and dance, which I loved,
Mm-hmm.
which I did. And I taught kindergarten for 13 years in Baltimore City.
Wow.
When I graduated from Hampton, I had three offers, one in Richmond, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore, and I chose Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my teaching career uh, uh, settled, really, for 13 years and four schools, I believe. But some exciting things happened there, and perhaps as we go along, I can share some of that. I am now in my 13th career.
Oh, wow.
I've had wonderful opportunities, and with I guess the urging and the foundation that my family laid, uh, I was taught to do well in whatever you did because you never know what's coming next. And that's been my philosophy. People would often ask, well, what are you going to do next? And I said, I have no idea, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you when it comes.
Yeah.
So I'm now at Bowie State University
Hmm.
and enjoying that.
Yeah, and it's funny that you talked about being a dress designer. So I've been, of course, learning more and more about you, and I saw that one of your brothers jokingly said that your mom used to make him wear the dresses while she hemmed the inseam of the dresses and stuff like that. But he was talking about her teaching not just him but you all how to just take care of yourselves. So it's funny to hear you say that about being a dress designer.
Well, and that's because my mother was a home ec major at Wilberforce, and she graduated in 1924.
Hmm.
And sewing was her hobby and dress design. So I grew up, she made everything for me, and we would shop for fabric, and I would sketch the clothes, and she would make
Hmm.
them. And so my brother, and I didn't realize this until 2 years ago, was the model that
Hmm.
she used when I
Hmm.
was in college to hem my dresses.
Right.
And of course, he passed away unfortunately in
Hmm.
April, but up until that time, I was still trying to beg forgiveness.
Hmm. No, that's funny. And so those pieces, obviously, were passed on to you and your brothers. And um, so again, a lot of historical context there, a lot of lessons passed on from your family. And so you talk about your mom being an educator, and then I know that there's again historical context to the role that you and your family played in education. So can you take us back uh, to the day when your brother um, walked into Central High, and can you talk to us about how your family became a part of that movement?
Yes, thank you for asking. When my brother was to enter Central in 1957, I had visited home for, I guess, about a week because I had just begun teaching in Baltimore. And I left on that Sunday, and he was to begin the next day on Monday. I was in my kindergarten room. At that time, I had 35 children in the morning and 32 in the afternoon. Afternoon doesn't exist like that anymore.
Hmm.
But my principal walked into the room that morning and said, Triopia, did you know about the rioting in Little Rock? I said, the what?
Hmm.
I said, people in Little Rock don't riot.
Hmm.
And I really didn't believe her.
Hmm.
And that evening, I was living with a principal and his wife. His wife had been a friend of my mother's in Little Rock. And we turned on television, and I honestly could not believe what I was looking at. And I immediately called home
Hmm.
because my father had passed away a few years earlier. And I was concerned about my mother and my
Hmm.
brothers, and certainly about Ernest. And when I called home, mother told me that they had tried to enter that morning, but the crowd rebuffed and prevented their going to school. So they were all led back into the cars and taken to Daisy Bates' house. Miss Daisy Bates was the uh, president of the state NAACP, and she was the one who was actually in a leadership role while the nine were trying to enter Central. So, anyway, when I was talking with my mother, I'll never forget, she said, and this she said every time I call, she said, we are fine.
Hmm.
Don't worry about us.
Hmm.
You have your kindergarten children to think about, and we are just fine. Now, I'm looking at this crowd going
Hmm.
berserk.
Hmm.
But again, I was assured that my brother was okay.
Hmm.
And that continued until the end of September.
Hmm.
And
You,
that's when President Eisenhower decided to send 1,000 troops.
Mhm.
to Little Rock to escort 9 children into school.
Wow. Yeah, I recall listening to you all talk about the community that you all lived in and how, it was just unheard of to have something like that taking place
Mhm.
because it was so, for the most part, harmonious. It seemed like that this would be something that happened in this community without the upheaval. So, it's funny because one of my questions for you was, um, thinking through like the decision, to go to the school, right? Like, what did that look like? Were you a part of those conversations with your family? But then it's like you said, I'm thinking about the context and like, okay, was there really worry or concern? So that's something that I guess you can help us with answering, for your family.
It's interesting that you should ask that. I was with my brother, and I guess we were doing an interview or something recently, and someone asked him, "Well, what made you decide to go to Central?"
Mm-hmm.
And if you recall, in 1954, of course, the Supreme Court passed the decision that segregation was unlawful and
Mm-hmm.
schools should integrate. So he was given, along with about 100 other students, an opportunity to apply to go to Central.
Mm-hmm.
But as time passed, the other students, for the most part, decided,
Mm-hmm.
nope, that was not the thing to do. So that's why when the time came for school to open, there were only 9, and he was the only senior.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that his decision, well, my mother, my family, my aunt, my mother, as I said, my father had passed, were of the philosophy that if you decided to do something and it was the right thing to do, then they would provide 100% support.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided that he wanted to take advantage of it. And I might add that when we were growing up, the high school, the black high school, Dunbar High School, had a football team that played in Central High Stadium on Friday nights. So we would have to walk by this enormous, gigantic, gorgeous school on Friday nights to the football game. And it didn't take a rocket scientist to know that if a building is 3 times the size of yours,
Mm-hmm.
there's got to be more going on inside. So when the opportunity came for Ernest and the other 8 to transfer to Central, it was a no brainer
Mm-hmm.
because we knew there would be educational opportunities that we didn't
Mm-hmm.
have at
Mm-hmm.
our high school.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised to hear you say that because I know you talk about the community, and we'll get to the community. But I wanted to ask you because I've heard you and your brother in recorded video talk about your aunt and your mother as a tandem and how
Mhm.
tough they were. So can you share a little bit about that? Because both of you seem to say, like basically your mom and your aunt didn't play.
No, no, they didn't. And both of them were long time teachers. And there are people now who were taught or had interaction with them, and they talk about my aunt and my mother now.
Hmm.
My mother taught clothing uh, up until the time that Ernest was born, and then she stayed out of the school system for a number of years until he was, I guess, about 3 or 4. And when she went back, she taught first grade. So there are first graders at home in Little Rock who still remember her.
Wow.
And they were the kind who they were very strict but very kind.
Hmm.
And my brother Scott used to always talk about my mother's big, beautiful eyes and
Hmm.
a stare that could that you could feel across a room,
Hmm.
and you knew what that stare meant. But they were both, and my aunt, I can remember her. Her favorite saying was, "Dearie, you are pitiful, pitiful, pitiful. But they supported and expected the best of all of the students they interacted with, and I think that they received that.
Wow. No, that's awesome. But it sounds like you all had a wonderful community, and I know that you speak glowingly about not just your aunt and your mom, but other professionals that served as role models in your community as you grew up. So, how does the feeling of community that you always talk about shape or drive the work that you're doing now with your storytelling? How does that make drive you to want to do more of that as you think about community?
Well, our community, and I said, the church community, the school community, the neighborhood community consisted of people who always expected you to do your best.
Hmm.
And even without saying, we knew the worst thing you could do would be to disappoint
Hmm.
people, whether they were relatives or neighbors, because you knew they were watching you
Hmm.
and they expected the best
Hmm.
from you.
Hmm.
So you had no choice
Hmm.
but to try to live up to their expectations.
Hmm.
I think about our neighborhood. We lived 4 blocks from my aunt, and she lived across the street from the high school. And I would walk from my house to her house very often, and would pass by the lawyer's house, the judge's house, the grocery store owner's house, the doctor's house.
Hmm.
And these were just people in our neighborhood. And I guess one of the things I'm proudest of, that even though those people were very, very successful, you never heard them talking about what they did.
Hmm.
They acted and they
Hmm.
supported and
Hmm.
they enhanced what we as students were doing, and we knew what they expected us to do, and that's what we tried to do.
Hmm. No, that's awesome, and I go back to even just talking about Dr. Bronte Jones. I mean, and I think that was kind of the impact that she had on us, right there on the campus of Houston Tillotson. Just kind of, you knew that those expectations were there. You knew
Mhm,
that benchmark for excellence was there, and like you said, you never wanted to disappoint. So it
mhm,
has a big impact on us as we follow you all as our elders. And so I would say thank you for that. And
mhm.
the you mentioned the church a few minutes ago. You talked about the Black church, and I know the church is a cornerstone for our community. And so one of the things that we see now is fewer young African Americans attending the Black church. And so do you see this as a missing piece to changing what we have right now in our community?
I have that conversation often with people, and I guess one of the things I realized when I was growing up back in the olden days, the church and the school were the center of community.
Mhm.
And you were kind of known by which church you attended.
Mhm.
And of course, at that time, because of Jim Crow, our experiences were confined to what our families did, what
Mhm.
the church provided, what the school provided. I was thinking, as I was thinking about this, I remember even as youngsters, that's when we had our first experiences at public speaking.
Mhm.
And it's those are the kinds of things that we had an opportunity to do. Now there is so much available for young people
Mhm.
that the unfortunately the church has kind of moved away
Mhm.
as a center for development. And I in a way, I feel sorry for young people because there are so
Mhm.
many choices
Mhm.
that I'm sure it's challenging to try to have them focus on participating in church-sponsored activities.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a lot of competing pieces that, like you said, may pull attention away, and we do think about the impact of that. I think you talked about school, and you talked about its impact on the community, and so I know that you're currently at Bowie State, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So one of the things that we just recently seen with the 2020 election cycle was a heightened focus and heightened visibility of HBCUs, and so and HBCU alums. We got a vice president, that's a former HBCU student, and so how have you felt about seeing the rise of the popularity of HBCUs right now?
I was thinking about that, and of course, our vice president graduated from the other HU. I have to add that.
Yes, ma'am.
But when I was growing up, attending an HBCU was just a matter of choice
Hmm.
as to which one, because most Southern universities did not allow Black people to matriculate.
Hmm.
So we grew up knowing that HBCUs were the place to go. And I think now other people are beginning to understand the importance. One of the things, and I experienced this at Bowie, HBCUs still become the institution to nurture
Hmm.
and to care for students. Many students are the first in their family to attend college, and many come without sometimes the kinds of background that allow them to be immediately successful. But HBCUs still maintain that nurturing quality,
Hmm.
and they support students and the faculty. I know the faculty I work with have a sincere interest not just in the students' academic accomplishments, but
Hmm.
in their becoming worthwhile citizens. So it's just a pleasure. And I think that now with our vice president having graduated from Howard, that more people will see the importance and the support that HBCUs provide for leadership in our nation.
Right. No, I have to give credit. I know where I was as a student when I got to Houston Tillotson, and I was fortunate. As I went to high school, I maintained honors courses in English language arts. I may have, pulled out of all the other honors courses, but those courses allowed me to be able to write, effectively. And so I think that and the support that I got at a HBCU campus allowed me to move through and, successfully graduate. Whereas had I been on another campus that didn't offer some of the supports, especially socially, that were provided to me on that campus, I don't know that I would have been
Mhm.
successful in matriculating through higher education. So I agree with everything that you said. As you think about that, or as you talk about that, we've talked about the vice president or our current vice president, and politics, and so I'm thinking about you. And so I don't have a lot of talent, but I did as a part of a competition on an HBCU campus. I did a Clinton speech. I did my best imitation, and so I understand that you were a member of the Clinton administration at one point. Is that something that you can share with us or talk to us about?
Yes, that was another wonderful experience. President Clinton had and my brother had been friends since Little Rock, and
Mm,
in fact, my brother introduced me to him. I guess it was about 3 years before he became president,
hmm.
and they remained in contact with each other. So when he became, in fact, I'll go back. I hope you don't mind. When
No.
when he his first campaign, when the first time he was elected president, I had friends in Little Rock who were a part of his campaign activity, and I remember the night election night.
Mhm.
My son and I were in Baltimore, and I was so excited. I called the airport, and we got a ticket, and we flew down to Little Rock to
Wow.
get there in time for the election returns.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we were standing in the crowd in front of the State House
Mhm.
when it was announced that he had won the
Mhm.
election,
Mhm.
and that was just an exciting experience. And I had no idea that I would become a member of his cabinet.
Mhm.
At the time, I was education director at Columbus Center in
Mhm.
Baltimore, and Columbus Center closed on Christmas Eve, 1997. And two of my friends were working with President Clinton,
Mhm.
and I called them, and it ended up that I received an appointment
Wow.
with the White House Initiative on HBCUs.
Mhm.
And I had an opportunity to see President Clinton a couple of times. We attended events at the White House. And I know one time President Clinton asked me, "Where's your brother?" I said, "Well, today is his birthday, and I hope he's out somewhere celebrating." He
Mhm.
called him that night to wish him a
Oh,
happy birthday.
that's awesome.
But he and his family have remained just nice people, and he and my brother are still very close.
Mhm. No, I think I've been a part of some, I guess, elections, and I don't think people understand sometimes that the energy and excitement that comes
Mhm.
around when you actually see somebody win after you kind of have worked to try to contribute to that cause and promote and push, for these desired outcomes. And so I remember the night I found out about my first daughter. I actually was working on I think a Wendy Davis campaign, and my wife came in and told me, she was like, hey, we're having a baby. I'm like, wow, that's cool. I was excited, but it was like I still was running out the door to go downtown and celebrate, the campaign results with some of my friends that had helped, with these campaigns. So
Mhm.
I completely understand you hopping a plane and trying to be there for the outcome. So I say
Yeah.
I'm talking about my kiddos, and so and you just mentioned your son, flew out with you, and so for me, like I said, I'm a parent of three. It's a very much humongous part of who I am, and I always hear you talking about your mom. And I've heard you say excellence was always reinforced. I've heard you say that
Mhm.
on a number of occasions, and so could you talk to us about that? And then what advice would you give me and other parents that are raising kids during this time?
I remember one specific thing, and I've mentioned this several times. I think, in elementary school, I don't know, and I did something that I thought was pretty cool.
Mhm.
I It was first prize or something like that. And when I got home, I shared it with my mother. Guess what I did? And she listened, as she always did. And she would say, "That's nice, but remember, you can always do better."
Mhm.
And that was her attitude. It was not a preaching, "You've got to do this, you got to do that," but you knew that the expectation was that you would always do your best.
Mhm.
And that's something that has really, I think, stuck with me throughout life. And even subconsciously,
Mhm.
unconsciously, whatever you're doing, you try to do your best. And I think that has resulted in my 13 careers.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see, like you said, taking that mentality into whatever it is that you do. Did your aunt, did she have anything to contribute to that excellence always being reinforced too? I know you mentioned her being a big part of you all's life.
Absolutely. In fact, I was named for her.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
she and my mother were the only siblings in their family, and not only was I named for her, but my birthday, I was born 5 minutes after her birthday.
Mhm.
Her birthday was July 2nd, mine is July 3rd. So,
Mhm.
and she and my mother were always very close. And, as I reflect over the years, I mentioned that we grew up when Jim Crow and segregation were alive and well.
Mhm.
And we couldn't go to restaurants. We couldn't go to the hotels in the South.
Mhm.
But every summer, my aunt would travel with me, would take me with her rather to Chicago
Oh, wow.
or St. Louis.
Mhm.
And now I realize, even though they didn't say anything,
Mhm.
it was to enable me to experience the kinds of things that I didn't get to experience at home.
Mhm.
Going to a restaurant,
Mhm.
going to a theater and sitting on the first floor rather than the
Mhm.
balcony.
Wow.
So she and my mother really uh, worked together to provide the kind of support that all of us needed. In fact, if I may mention, you asked about Ernest and the family's decision when he decided to go to Central.
Mhm.
My mother's attitude, and I heard her say that if this is something you want to do, we will support you
Mhm.
100%. And that's the way they did things. And I think it has helped me, I know, tremendously as an adult.
Mhm. No, I can see the impact. I feel like, I've been fortunate, and it's like, in my career, I've got a chance to lead a middle school campus, which the namesake was Sam Tasby, and so got a chance to just know him and learn him, and he was responsible for the desegregation of Dallas public schools,
Mhm.
and so got a chance to see him off into his twilight, and so I was the first African American to lead his campus, and I just counted myself fortunate for that opportunity. I also got a chance to lead Emmett J. Conrad High School, who happened to be, one of the first black doctors in Dallas. One was a trustee at Houston Tillerson, so it was funny because it was like, for me, I was like, oh man, this is a good omen, when I found out that he was connected to Houston Tillerson. But those are like little pieces that I've had a
Mhm.
chance to kind of be a part of and learn and grow. And I'm always trying to learn and grow. So with that being said, what advice would you have for me as a young black male, um, working just to always make positive contributions in the field of education?
First of all, I say congratulations to you for achieving what you have achieved. You have a lot to be proud of, and we are proud of, even though I'm just meeting you, I'm
Hmm.
very proud of you.
Thank you.
I asked one of my colleagues at Bowie. In fact, we worked together when we were at the National Board for Professional Teaching
Hmm.
Standards,
I see
and
that.
he is he just stepped down as chair of educational leadership in the College of Education. That's the doctoral program.
Hmm.
And I asked him, what would you say if someone asked you that question? And he said that you use your life example as an exemplar.
Hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Because Black men, Black educators, and he's in charge of a new program highlighting Black educators at Bowie. And
Hmm.
maybe you'd like to learn more about that. I'll
I would definitely.
share. Yeah, doing an exempt. In fact, he received the largest grant
Hmm.
that the College of Education has ever received
Wow. Wow.
for this program. But I'd love for you to be in touch with him. But he said your life
Hmm.
and what you have experienced will serve as the best example for young men following in your footsteps.
Hmm. Yes, ma'am.
And,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
when I mentioned National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, one of our colleagues left the board. I guess it's been about maybe 8 or 9 years ago now, but he became a principal in Austin.
Oh, wow.
Yes, his name was, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. His name was David Delucier, I believe.
Okay.
Uh,
David
I,
Delucier.
yes.
Okay.
He probably preceded you, but
Hmm.
he left the board and became a principal in Austin.
Wow.
But again, Dr. Will Parker, I told him I would be talking with you,
Hmm.
and he said just make sure that you share your life experiences
Yes, ma'am.
because that's what counts.
No, I appreciate that, I want to model that, and so I'm gonna be selfish a little bit. I'm gonna have to come to Bowie State and recruit me some teachers because I need me some African American male and female teachers down here in Austin, Texas. So that's something that we need to try to make happen, so I can come up there and meet your team, and meet what you all have there, so we can try to get some of your teachers down here in Austin, Texas.
Well, we would love to. In fact, I will make that connection
Hmm.
this weekend because Dr. Parker and there's another faculty member, Dr. Julius Davis.
Hmm.
They both are working on projects focusing on Black male educators,
Yep, that's what we need.
identifying, and they plan to have conferences
Hmm.
and do lots of things. So I think it would be I would love for you to become
Hmm.
connected with them.
Definitely, I would. I would. No, I appreciate you, Miss Washington. I appreciate you sitting there for our interview. I said, those are all of my questions, but is there anything else that you would like to share with us as an elder, that you feel like would be fruitful and helpful for us in our journey?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity just to chat with you.
Mm.
And I mean it when I said I'm really proud of
Mhm.
what you have achieved and congratulate you wholeheartedly. Uh, I think if for young people, again, to remember that whatever you're doing, even though it might seem minimal,
Mhm.
it isn't.
Yes, ma'am.
Everything is important, and you never know what will lead to something else. I think about again. I mentioned I'm in my 13th career, and I have not I have not sought any of the things
Mhm.
that I have done.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just you're doing something, and that would lead to something else.
Mhm.
And because you tried to do a good job in
Mhm.
one thing, it leads to
Mhm.
the next thing. And that's something I think never grows old.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Never.
Say that's tried and true advice for all of us to live by.
Yes. Yes.
This message has been brought to you by the National Black Leadership and Empowerment Project.